Long ago, in the vast and fertile land called the Kingdom of Amadi, there was a palace of polished stone and golden banners fluttering in the wind. Inside those great halls, a king waited for birth of his first child, a child he believed would bring everlasting glory to his reign. King Olanma was a man respected for his strength and feared for his pride. He had conquered enemies and raised monuments to his name, but he was unprepared for the lessons destiny would bring him. When the child's first cries pierced the midnight air, a storm gathered over the palace. The rain drummed on the rooftops, lightning splintered the sky, and thunder rolled as if the heavens themselves were awake to witness the child's arrival. Queen Miriam, who was gentle and wise, held the newborn to her breast and whispered, "You are my Adaeze, my precious jewel." She brushed her thumb across the baby's cheek. There, beneath the soft skin, was a dark, shaped mark. Some called it a birthmark, others a sign. But to King Olanma, whose heart had been hardened by years of battle and fear of bad omens, it was something much worse. When he laid eyes upon his daughter, his face grew cold. "What is this shadow?" he asked in a voice that chilled the queen to her bones. "Only a mark," Miriam pleaded. "It will bring no harm." But the king pulled back his hand, as though touching the child might infect him. "No child of mine bring ruin to this kingdom," he declared. In that moment, Queen Miriam knew she could not save him from himself. She only held her baby closer and prayed that someday her husband's heart would soften. As dawn broke over Amadi, King Olanma ordered that the princess be taken away to live in a quiet village by the river, where no eyes would see her and whisper of curses. The queen's tears fell onto Adaeze's tiny forehead as she kissed her goodbye. "Forgive us," she whispered, "forgive us all." And so the princess was carried into exile, her life shaped not by what she had done but by what others feared she would become. In the village of Oj River, Adaeze was raised by a kind woman named Nena. Though she never knew the comfort of her father's embrace, she grew surrounded by the laughter of other children, the songs of fishermen returning at sunset, and the wisdom of old storytellers who gathered beneath the great silk cotton tree. As Adaeze grew, the mark on her cheek grew, too, darkening into the shape of a crescent moon. Some children would stare or whisper, but Nina always knelt before her and said, "My child, your mark is a gift. One day you will see its purpose." Years passed, and Adaeze became a young woman of quiet grace. She learned to weave cloth and gather herbs. She listened to the stories of her people and wondered who her mother had been and why her father had never come. Far away in the palace, King Olanma aged into a man haunted by choices he could never take back. His throne room, once filled with celebration, had become a place of shadows and regret. Then, one bitter season, the kingdom fell sick. It began with a cough, no worse than a passing fever. But soon the cough turned to wheezing, the wheezing to racking pain. Fields withered, cattle grew thin, and the people began to die. Healers came from every province, carrying roots and potions. None could cure the sickness. At last, when hope was nearly gone, the prime minister fell to his knees before the king. "Your Majesty," he begged, "there is a prophecy older than any of our books. It says that when the kingdom is dying, the child with the shadowed face will bring healing." King Olanma looked away, unable to speak. He had thought himself strong enough to defy destiny, but he was only a man, and pride had made him weak. Still, he would not summon Adaeze. His shame was too heavy, so the sickness spread, house by house, family by family. One evening, while Adaeze washed clothes by the river, the air grew still, the current slowed, a pale light shimmered on the water. And there, rising from the shallows, was a figure she had never seen but felt she had always known. "Mother," Adaeze whispered, his heart trembling. Queen Miriam's spirit shone with a gentle brightness. Her eyes were full of love. "My daughter," she said, her voice like the river itself, "the time has come." "Time for what?" "To return, to heal the kingdom that cast you away." Adaeze's throat tightened. "I was never wanted. Why should I save them?" "Because forgiveness is the strongest power in this world," her mother said. "Because you are more than the fear they placed upon you." Tears spilled down Adaeze's cheeks. "But what if I fail?" The Queen Miriam touched her daughter's face. "You will not fail. You are my Adaeze. You are the light that will drive away the darkness." The vision faded, leaving only the hush of the river, and in that quiet, Adaeze felt something she had never felt before: her purpose. At dawn, she gathered her few belongings and began the long journey to the palace, her steps sure and steady. When she arrived at the gates of Amadi, the guards stared in disbelief. No one had seen the exiled princess since she was a baby. "Who are you?" one demanded. Adaeze lifted her chin. "I am Adaeze, daughter of Olanma and Miriam. I have come to heal my people." The gates swung open. Word spread through the palace like a wind carrying rain, and in the throne room, King Olanma rose slowly, leaning on his staff. When he saw her standing there, so much like her mother, yet entirely her own, his eyes filled with tears. "Daughter," he whispered. Adaeze said nothing at first. Her gaze was calm and unwavering. She looked into his sorrow and saw not a monster but a man who had lost his way. King Olanma fell to his knees. "All these years," he said, his voice breaking, "I thought I was protecting this land, but I was only protecting my fear. I sent you away because I was weak. Forgive me." In that moment, the pain of her childhood rose in her like a storm, but she remembered her mother's words. Forgiveness is the strongest power. Adaeze knelt beside her father and took his trembling hands. "I forgive you," she said softly. The king began to weep. As the sun set behind the palace walls, Adaeze stepped out onto the courtyard, where the sick and dying lay on mats. She looked over the faces, some old, some young, and felt no anger, only compassion. She raised her marked high. "By the river that bore me," she called. "By the love that made me, I asked the spirits to hear me." A hush fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. Light gathered in her palm, warm and golden. It flowed from her hand like water washing over the people. Course softened. Eyes opened, and for the first time in many moons, voices rose in gratitude. When it was over, Adaeze turned back to her father. In his gaze she no longer saw fear. He looked at her with pride. Days later, in a hall filled with flowers and song, King Olanma placed a crown on his daughter's head. "Today," he declared, "the shadow becomes our light." The people cheered. For in Adaeze, they saw what they had never understood before, that sometimes what we fear most is the very thing that will save us. At dawn, Adaeze walked to the river one last time. She stood where her mother's spirit had appeared and watched the sunrise. She was no longer the hidden child, no longer the exile. She was the healer, the daughter, the queen in her own right. And in her heart, she knew she had become exactly who she was always meant to be.
Please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more exciting, lovely, and interesting stories.